Hey, how's it going everyone? We're going to take a look at the S.H.Figuarts of Uchiha Sasuke from Naruto Shippuden. So this is the 2022 version or 2.0 version of this character by S.H.Figuarts. They have done this character in the past. I do actually own one of them, but I never got around to opening it. So my experience in terms of knowing what's the difference is going to be quite limited. So we're just going to check this out as is. I'm not really going to do any comparisons because I don't have experience on the first one. Now this particular version, I got mine from Nin-nin-Game. I bought it from there and I pre-ordered it a little bit early, so I got the cheaper than retail price, I guess. But of course, shipping to or outside of Japan is a little bit more expensive these days, so it still wasn't that cheap. As always, I will leave links down in the description below those for where places still have it in stock potentially, and if it's still there, maybe you might want to pick one up, who knows. But here we have the packaging of the figure. You can see the figure kind of laying there with a purple background, which is nice, thematic with Uchiha Sasuke here. He's looking off to the side a little bit. You get an effect piece here, and you also get 3 different faceplates, additional faceplates, and the sword as well, which the sword name I can't remember. But you've also got the artwork here, which is in that kind of inky line art effect filter, I guess. Sasuke Uchiha, he who bears all hatred, down here. Sticker, logos, all of that good stuff. On the top, you've just got the description of what S.H.Figuarts is, and on the sides and bottom and the back, you've got different pictures of the figure in different poses with different kind of parts attached. So the back always gives you a better look of things there. You can see looking pretty good, looks pretty good for sure. And the bottom to finish that off, I quite like this purple kind of gradient effect they're going with. But in terms of thematics with the packaging, it's quite similar to what we've seen with Naruto beforehand, and what we'll also see in my next video, which is going to be of Sakura. But as I said, I haven't opened the version 1 of this figure, so let's move forward and have a look at version 2.0 or the 2022 version of Uchiha Sasuke. And here we have Uchiha Sasuke out of the box with the option parts laid out in front of us. Now we'll go through the option parts first, and then we'll go through the figure. Just remember, I haven't opened the previous version of the S.H.Figuarts Uchiha Sasuke version 1.0 basically. So we're just going to have a direct look at this, and there won't be any comparison between the previous versions. So starting with the hands then. So Uchiha Sasuke, he does have fists already attached to the figure when you get it out of the box. And then one of his alternate pair of hands, this guy comes with a lot of hands by the way, which is great. These are going to be his fairly relaxed hands there. You can see all of his hands have this very pale kind of skin tone to them, which is fine. Sasuke is a very pale character as well. And one thing I also want to kind of point out is that these aren't as shiny or as glossy as the Naruto figure that I had before, which was one of the negatives with that. Great sculpt there. But yeah, as I was saying, I didn't like that the figure was too shiny last time with Naruto, but with Sasuke, it's not too bad. And it's just, matte figures just look better. These hands then are going to be slightly more serious, I guess. I guess when he's being struck or something. Action hands, basically. One version of an action hand. Then you get these serious action hands here, which you're probably going to want to use for the Chidori effect piece laying there. You can see on the side. So you can see the scrunched fingers there as well. Again, nice pale skin tone, nice sculpts to them. He does come with 2 types of hands for the sword. So first type is like this. So you'll probably use this when he's holding the sword to strike or defend, something like that. You can see the thumb is down, but then the other final pair of hand is going to be with the thumb erected out. So I'll show you how to attach and equip the sword later on, but you've got 2 types of sword equipping hands. Jumping to the effect part then, so this actually is just going to attach raw to the arm. You'll remove a hand and then you'll attach this. This doesn't actually attach to a hand, which I thought was interesting. Not unusual, but I thought it was interesting. It's a fairly kind of dynamic looking piece, very exciting looking piece, electrified. There you can see the paint job there kind of goes from white at the end and then goes into kind of transparent blue, which is great. It looks really good as well. Just be kind of careful about certain points like here. And then I think another one like here. So my room is quite warm today. The weather in London is pretty warm. So these thin bits, they taper off a little bit here. So I feel like if you accidentally fidget with them, they might end up kind of cracking and creasing and potentially get damaged. So just keep that in mind. This long piece, surprisingly, is okay. But again, just keep that stuff in mind. Now we're going to jump onto the faces. So Sasuke by default comes with the face with no Sharingan equipped. It's just going to be his dead black eyes. We'll go into that face once we take a look at the figure. There's a couple of things I want to talk about with that. First alternate face sculpt then is going to be this one here. So this one does have the different eyes. So this one in particular is going to be kind of his basic Sharingan eyes. You can kind of work out 2 tomoes there. That's the apostrophe looking thing on the eyes. Now you're gonna have to get a good zooming camera to see it, or magnifying glass, or if your eyes are very good then you should be able to see it. I kind of can see it, but at the same time, you know, I'm getting old. My eyes are not as great as they used to be. But yeah, this one is his basic Sharingan eyes. Application is pretty good, and it looks pretty even here, I would say, or symmetrical, so it's okay. Now, if you recall, when I talked about the Naruto figure, I wasn't too keen about the face sculpt on that. And though this Uchiha Sasuke is better, I still have some reservations about it. I don't think it's quite as good as it could be. And I think I described it in the previous video where I said it looks like how when the animation of the anime decreased, that's the inspiration for these face sculpts, which is not great personally. So Uchiha Sasuke isn't bad. Here we can see it doesn't look too bad, but we'll keep going and see what the next kind of face plates have on offer for us. So next one is going to be this one with the expression is different, and also the other difference are the eyes. So they don't use the Sharingan that we saw before, the 3 Tomoe or the 2 Tomoe. This one is going to actually be, I believe this one is the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. I kind of tapered off with the series once they went to the whole kind of moon thing and Princess Kage and whatnot. So at this point, I don't recall the actual design, but having a closer look, it's quite hard to see personally because this is quite intricate. This one, yeah, it looks a lot more like the Eternal version of the Mangekyo Sharingan, not his first Mangekyo Sharingan. So that's pretty interesting. It's cool that you get that, and maybe that's something you didn't get with version 1.0. So it's cool that this one has an alternate version of the eyes, which is great. And then of course the alternate expression too, where he's gritting his teeth. Sculpt is actually not too bad on this one. And then the final faceplate is going to be another alternate expression, but also alternate eyes. So give you a moment to kind of hopefully see that a little bit clearly, I hope. Now, I hope, remember these faceplates are tiny, and of course, with the eye details, it's kind of hard to see those in, and I don't have a great kind of zoom in, unfortunately. So what we can see here is, again, his expression is different from the other two. Now his teeth aren't gritted, he's got his mouth a little bit open. I'm not a huge fan of this face sculpt. I think because it lacks any shading or whatever, and just kind of sculpt of it around the nose, upper mouth here, it's a bit weird, and it therefore doesn't look that great to me. It's not awful, just could be better. Now on the eyes themselves, now the actual kind of I guess the expression or the creasing around the nose bit looks pretty good, and the actual eyes themselves look pretty good. So if you can notice then, so the right eye is no longer the what's it called, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. This one's going to be the regular Sharingan that he has, and then his left eye is of course now obviously quite different. So this one is using the Rinnegan, which again comes later on in the series part 2 in Shippuden, obviously, because this is the figure based in Shippuden, where he does end up getting access to that level of eye power, which is pretty cool. So it's pretty good, actually. That's one thing I definitely like about this figure, is that each faceplate has slightly different eyes, and that's really, really cool. As I said early on, we will be going into the default face later on, and that, just to kind of give you a preview of my opinion, isn't too hot. Now moving on to the swords, we've got 3 types of versions, which I think is a little bit overkill and completely kind of unnecessary. So first, we've got this one here, which is completely closed. So the sheath is there. You can't open this or anything like that. It's just pure sculpt of the sword's sheath. And then you got the handle on this side here. And actually, just for kind of make it easier, I've already attached it to the belt attachment at the back. This doesn't happen when you get it out of the box. You do have to do this. You just got to slide it in just like this. And then you can see there's a little peg here on the other side. It's not plastic, it's more like a rubber. So I feel like this is not great, because this kind of is flexing already and it's kind of bent, you can see. And that's probably just going to get worse over time when you keep swapping parts and then plugging it into the back of the figure. We'll get into that more in just a second. So you've got a closed version of the sword like so. Then you've got one where it's slightly removed from the sheath, and actually again it doesn't come like that. This only goes in one way, so hopefully you guys can see this bit here. You can see that, and on the sword bit here as well, you can see it tapers off at the end with the blade bit at the top bit. So it will only go one way, like so. So if you've got this kind of pose where Sasuke is holding the sword from the back and he's just kind of pulling it out, or maybe returning it, then this is the one you're going to use. It's pretty cool, I like it. And then finally, you've got the one sword on its own, so no sheath applied to it. This doesn't even go inside any of the others. This one, for example, it just stops there. So you've only got the sword here, which I think is fine. It's very basic. There's nothing like extreme in terms of paint or anything. Very basic sculpt, but it's nice. It's good. Now, the reason I say it's overkill is, why didn't they just give this and then, you know, a full sheath or scabbard to just put it in like other figures do it, like Figma Zelda, for example, Link. But this one, you've got this half one and then this closed one. I don't know why they did that. Wouldn't have been the way I would have done it. And I just think it's nicer to have this go fully inside the sheath. It just kind of makes it nice and complete and just a little bit more clean, in my opinion. Not a deal breaker, just something weird that I noticed. Probably saves parts as well, in my opinion, possibly. Now we come into the figure itself. Now, just to kind of repeat again, I've never seen or opened 1.0 of this particular character from S.H.Figuarts years ago. I do own one of them, but I just never opened it. So straight up, I personally think this figure looks pretty good. I did have issues with Naruto. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. I was probably a bit too harsh on that, to be honest, but still, I didn't really kind of like the figure. It was okay. Whereas here, I'm liking what I see with Sasuke for the most part. It's pretty good. I have some small issues to talk about, but we'll get to the details in a second. But in terms of just kind of him standing here like this, he does look pretty good. Honestly, he does look pretty good. So giving you a closer look then, let's start with the top. So his hair sculpt in general is quite good. The spikes on his back definitely look really good. I love the way that's done. Obviously, because you've got this seam here to kind of remove the hair and then therefore change the faceplate, kind of breaks things up a bit and it can look a little bit weird. At a large distance, you're probably not going to notice that here. You probably still could because there's harsh light right on his head. But at a larger distance, you're probably not going to notice that too much. His face from the front, now with the hair, looks okay. One thing I would say is I would have kind of liked if his hair was maybe a little bit more like suede on the front. His bangs were suede, or a version attachment that had it suede. But it doesn't look too bad there. Depending on the angle, it can look a little bit flat, I guess, if you don't have any of the spikes showing, like the back spikes. But again, play around with angles and lighting and it should look okay. Now his face here, now I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like his face too much, this basic stoic face with the dead black eyes. I think mine aren't even like applied like symmetrically. They just look a bit strange. And the sculpt is also a little bit dead. His mouth looks a little bit too small. It just looks a bit, I don't know. I know Sasuke looks pretty dead and miserable. I get that. But as a figure, it just looks a bit kind of basic. As I said before, it's a bit like when the animation had decreased animation and art quality. And therefore, this is what the figures are trying to look like rather than being the best they could be, which is just weird. It's just very weird. So not my favorite faceplate when it comes to this Sasuke. The other ones are definitely much better. But it's still good that you get the no Sharingan activation eyes, which I think is important to have. Something else I also want to point out is the skin shade or skin tone on his chest versus the face and neck. Very different. Like, it might not show up so clearly on my video, but trust me, that is super different. The skin on the chest is probably more closer to, I guess, the arms, but the face is definitely different. Actually, I should probably check. Like, yeah, the face is definitely different. The material feels and looks a little bit different compared to the chest, which is a bit weird. It's again not a huge like issue. It's still an issue, not a deal breaker by any means, but it's still something pretty obvious for me. Going down to the rest of his kind of outfit, this is hard plastic. His collar is hard plastic. It doesn't have any flex to it, unlike his kind of bangs. They do have a little bit of flex to it, and then the belt here, which we'll get into, also has flex. So this is hard plastic. It shouldn't get broken or cracked or anything, but because they're kind of flared, it could do. So I'm just kind of raising it for you guys right now. Just like the Naruto one, he's got a lot of breaking points here. And when I say breaking, I mean like cuts. Nothing's damaged, but just the cuts in terms of articulation. So you got the kind of piece here, and then it cuts again, and then you got the shoulder bit, and then it cuts again, and then you got the kind of bicep shirt bit, and so on. And then similarly to the torso, you got the cut there, and then you got this loose bit down here as well with the stomach area of his shirt. Same, just like the Naruto figure as well. So it's a bit too much for me. Like I just think you don't need this bottom bit. Like, it could have just been one sculpt and same effect could have happened. Personally, it would have been a cleaner look. I didn't like it for Naruto, and I don't like it so much here. But fortunately for Sasuke, it's less obvious because of his kind of whole belt skirt thing. I forgot the Japanese word for it. I should probably look that up. But yes, because of his outfit, it's less obvious than it was for the Naruto figure. Quickly turning him around, you can see the Uchiha symbol there as well, which is cool. By the way, in terms of the color of his top, for me personally, I think a slightly lighter shade would have been better. I'm being nitpicky here. It's not a deal breaker. Again, a slightly lighter shade, but I think it might be a material difference when it comes to the color. But it's not bad, but I think some people might prefer slightly lighter shade. Coming down to the bottom half then, I think it looks great. This is a really like thin rubber sort of material, and I really like it. I actually think this is not too bad. This is probably what the if one of my videos way back for Bring Arch Terror from Kingdom Hearts, this is probably what it should have been. So this is actually pretty good. It allows for pretty decent flex. So when you do move his legs, they don't really get in the way too much. There is a split down the side of the leg, so depending on the angle that you've got, you may see that, but it's not a deal breaker. Again, you've got some nice shading here on the skirt too, so it goes from like a blue, and then you've got some darker shading down below, which is great. I love that. You got a little bit of a split here too, which again is fine. The actual belt, sash, robe, bow thing, this is pretty much like a rubber type of thing, like a soft, very flexible type. It's not very flexible, but there's some flex to it. Bit like this but thicker, and then this kind of rotates here. You can see now there's this little bit here which you can take off right here, and because there is some flex to it, when you do take it off, I have this feeling that as you do take it off, you're probably going to get this bit bending backwards, so it might not sit flush in the end. And then, as I mentioned earlier before with the sword, this rubber bit basically plugs in here, and you can kind of see what I mean. Like once you start plugging this in and swapping parts a lot, that flex is naturally going to happen. So then this might end up bending, or it might not fit in there properly because suddenly the actual peg bit, you know, because you're going to take it out like that, the peg bit is bent like this, is squashed one side like so. So you might not be able to fit that in properly. So not the best way to do it. It would have been better if it was just going to be a similar kind of ball peg, like the wrists, for example. That's the way I would have done it. And that's basically the way it's kind of, it's not really actually done here. This is actually quite similar. I just realized this is similar here with that rubber. So this could potentially get damaged over time as well. Hopefully not. This bit actually just came off. It hasn't actually come off for me before, but there, click back in. But it's cool that you can articulate that. Oh, and then yeah, finishing off with the legs, you can see his pants are nice dark blue as well. They are pretty much the same sort of articulation as the Naruto figure, but as I mentioned in that one where I didn't like it because of the random cuts, his one, again, because of the way he's dressed, you don't actually see it, so it's fine. You got the cut in the knee as well, which I don't particularly like so much as well. We get into articulation in a second. And then finishing off with the kind of sandals and boot crossover thing that he's got, which don't look too bad. But so in terms of looks, this figure is actually quite good. I think I've spent a long time just talking about his looks, but that's okay. But in terms of looks though, yeah, I'm not like super disappointed with him. I think he looks good. I think there's improvements to be made, for example the face, and then the kind of material on the sash robe thing. That's really about it. And then the skin tone, I guess. In terms of articulation, he is quite good indeed. So we've got regular motion on the neck here, like so. Because of the flared collar, you may get some kind of limited motion there, but it's still pretty good, to be quite honest, to twist and tilt and whatever. Plus you've got the neck as well, which is helping him to look down. Up, not too much because of the flared collar and then his spiky hair, so that can limit him a little bit there. The arms are great. They're going to have great articulation. They might are a little bit kind of tight on the oops, there we go, a little bit too tight there, so that happened. If that does happen, don't worry too much, just click the joint back in. Mine's kind of gone a little bit too fast, so let me reset that and then click that back in there. Hopefully I can get that. Nope, that wasn't it. Oh, everything's coming apart now. Great. But let's just kind of get that in anyway. You're gonna see, this is what I mean, because it's actually, this is a good demonstration here. So because of the actual extra range of motion that they want, everything is in parts now. So you've now got the forearm here, you've got the shirt sleeve here, plus you got this bit here, which was here, I can't remember now. Yeah, this bit goes into the shoulder, so you got a lot to kind of like play around with. So if that does happen where it falls off, then yeah, it's a little bit annoying. So actually now I'm gonna have to kind of get this done on off camera. So let's do that, and then I'll return and carry on talking about articulation. It is quite good, trust me. Alright, so Sasuke is back with his arm relocated in. So you want to rotate the arm at this point here, not the inner bit right there. And if it does come off, just kind of remember the pattern of how it sandwiches in and then plug it back in. Mine's still a little bit tight. But yeah, so we've got the little sleeve of his shirt here, which is kind of rotatable. That's a separate part. You've got a twist here inside, which connects to this shoulder bit right here that we saw, and then you got a twist and all that ankle stuff. Ankle, I always say ankle, it's the wrist. You got the ankle stuff always like so as well. That pretty much covers the arm. Same is going to be for the other side. Because of the color of his shirt, I don't mind the cuts as much as I did with Naruto one. This one's not too bad. It's still the same kind of thing, but it doesn't look as bad. For the torso articulation, really nice kind of swivel and bends here and there. Really good stuff. Now I did say I didn't really like this too much. I still don't like it too much, but again, because of the way Sasuke's outfit is, it doesn't look too bad. You can see he doesn't bend too much backwards because of the outfit. But yeah, it's still pretty good, plenty good, honestly, for him. Now we come down to the hips and legs bit, which is good. I mentioned it's good. There is some restriction, but not that much, honestly, really not that much. Just if you've got loose legs, sometimes that can happen. Then sure, this might droop down because of this weight. It's thin, but it still weighs something. But he can kick up decently. Now, I don't like the articulation so much on these 2.0 figures so far. I don't like that slit there and then the hip there. It's just weird. I just rather have just connect the leg all the way into the hip with the kind of ball joint thing that they had going on with some of the older Dragon Ball and S.H.Figuarts, for example. I just prefer that personally. I know not everyone's going to like that, but for me, it's just, I don't know, I just feel that just blocks it. It's cumbersome. It just seems weird. You can eventually get it and twist it up, sure, but I just feel like it's more effort, that, to be honest. I don't think it's very good. I really don't know why they changed for that. Moving on, though, like he's got the twist there. It does twist a little bit. There you can see in the groin area. It's quite dark actually because of the way his outfit is and the light, but yeah, hopefully you can see that. As I said, yeah, it twists there, and then coming down to the knee bend like so. Knee bend is kind of, I don't really like it. It's too ugly for me, just like Naruto's one. It's not great. He's got a twist here. You can see the upper bit again in the dark blue to black might not show so great, but he's got a twist, as you can see. And then we come down to the ankle. I got the right word, ankle, yes. And now this is where it's very similar, if not the same, to Naruto, and I didn't like it there. Now here, maybe it's because I've gotten a bit used to it. I don't mind it as much, but I still don't really like it. I don't know what it is. Maybe I don't know. Like I just don't really like this sort of articulation. I think I'm just so used to just this basic ball peg joint that this just seems a bit like weird. I mean, it functions. It's actually not as bad as I found it with the Naruto one, but I still don't really like it. Like, yeah, you can move it up and down. If you move it up too much, you're going to get the gap there. But it reminds me too much of the Play Arts Kai, Play Arts and Bring Arts that I don't like it there. I really dislike it there. And so them bringing it here is not too great for me, but it works. It works, I guess. But maybe it will grow on me. Maybe it will grow on me. But that's the articulation there. He has good articulation there. I'll admit it is good. Finishing off with the toe hinge there as well, which, you know, is pretty basic stuff. Oh, and then I did mention that this stuff does swivel in different parts here, as you can see, so that's pretty good as well. So in terms of articulation, really, this figure is quite good. You would be surprised. You'd think that maybe because of historical figures with a big kind of outfit like this, especially this skirt bit and the belt, he might not articulate so great, but he does actually articulate pretty decently in my opinion. So here's Naruto, which I've done an unboxing for. Check out that video if you haven't seen it already. So here you can see the faces. Hopefully, maybe like my point of that, the faces just look weird. Am I the only one that thinks that? I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks that. The faces are just a little bit strange for me. But in terms of height, they are roughly the same. Sasuke might be a little bit taller, probably reaching 15 exact once you get the spikes involved. But otherwise, they are pretty much the same. I forgot their canon heights. I think Naruto and Sasuke are pretty much the same height by part 2, right? Because I know he had a growth spurt because he used to be quite small, and then yeah, he had a growth spurt. But that's the size there for you. Let's go on to swapping some parts now, and we'll start with, of course, the face. So to do that, just take off the front bangs there, and you probably end up taking the faceplate, and that's okay. Remove the faceplate, and let's actually just go straight for the one with the Rinnegan in it. So we're gonna add that in there. It's pretty straightforward to do, and then put the hair back on, and there you go. That's the face right there. Again, skin color difference between the face and then face, neck is the same, and then that's different to the chest there. Then let's change the hand. So we'll equip the sword actually. I'll leave that bit here off, but we'll actually have him equip the sword. So we'll grab the sword and we'll grab the hand where the thumb is kind of not erected. So we need the right hand here, and then he usually holds it kind of like upside down, I guess, usually. So what you gotta do is feed the sword, sorry, into the hand, and that's it. Hold it by the handle. Try not to hold it on the blade bit in case you end up snapping it as it feeds in. definitely you don't want to do that. Once you've done that, just add the hand back to the arm or the wrist peg, like so. It should click, and there we go. He's holding his sword now, also with the Sharingan and Rinnegan face plate as well, and looking pretty good. You can add the sheath onto the other hand actually with the same hand that we've got here. It can still hold onto the sheath if you wanted to, and then that kind of brings us to the last bit of adding what's its face, the Chidori effect part, right? So take off the left hand, and then we'll just kind of, hopefully you can kind of see inside the socket. All you got to do is just attach it raw to the wrist. There is no need to attach this to a hand. It just doesn't work. So there we go. There's usually on my one, I don't get so much as a click. I can feel it that it's connected. And there we go. He's got his Chidori effect piece added on, which I think looks really good, by the way. Once this is added on to the figure, it looks super good, and it kind of hides that his face sculpts aren't that great. You know, they're not terrible, but they're not that great. But yeah, he looks very good with that effect part added on. And then if you want to have the sword added, or if you want to use the Chidori hand there, which when he holds onto his, like this hand holds onto the Chidori hand, that's really cool as well. But I think he looks pretty good. He honestly does look pretty good. So this really brings me to the end of the figure now, and honestly it's better than the Naruto one in my opinion. I quite like it more than the Naruto one. The articulation I think I'm used to in terms of the way there's so many cuts and breakpoints everywhere with the kind of shoulder bit and then the stomach area bit and so on. The lower portion, the hips, the groin area, I still don't like that. I don't think I would change my mind on that even when I get around to opening Sakura. I'm assuming she's going to be the same, but with Naruto and Sasuke so far, I don't like it. Fortunately for Sasuke though, you don't see that because of the way his outfit is, so it's not a bad thing, right? With Naruto though, I really do not like it. Even in the promo pictures, I was a bit like, why have they got those weird? It just kind of looks weird, right? To me, it looks weird. But generally speaking, for Sasuke, I think this articulation is, I would say, it's a little bit impressive, surprising, because I didn't think he'd be able to get even this kind of pose that looks pretty natural because of the skirt. I didn't think that was maybe going to be super good, especially after the fears with Bring Arts, which different line of figures, sure, but that wasn't very good. So I'm pretty kind of happy that he still retains very good leg articulation even with the skirt. That's pretty good to know. The downside for me is still definitely the faceplates. I think there's just something a little bit off with the faceplates for me, in my opinion. Maybe you guys might not think so. For me, definitely there's something a little bit off with those, especially with this one, right? The one with the black eyes. He just looks weird. I think the application on my one's a little bit weird. The sculpt as well in general it's just a bit too flat and soft for me. Not as bad as Naruto, not as bad at all. He still is a better figure in general. And then yeah, otherwise I think he's pretty good. I did mention the sword, like the sword of Kusanagi. Yeah, I got that name. I actually looked that up beforehand. The sword of Kusanagi is good, but I still don't understand why they didn't just give the sword that goes completely into the sheath. Minor thing, to be honest, at the end of the day, minor thing, but I still think it would have been a nicer, cleaner look to the overall package. So generally speaking, I do like the figure. I think it's pretty good. I don't like the lower articulation, as I said, and still don't know why they went through that. But yeah, I think if you do like Sasuke quite a lot, then definitely try and pick it up. If you missed version 1.0 of Sasuke, then this is kind of your only choice, then sure, go ahead and pick it up. And maybe you want to complete Team 7, then again, sure, go ahead and pick this up. As I mentioned, I will leave links down in the description below of places that may still have it in stock by the time I upload this video, but as always, things go in and out of stock pretty quick, so you may miss it still. After this, I'm going to check out the rest of Team 7, and that's going to be the last person who's going to be, of course, Haruna Sakura as well. I guess you can count Kakashi, which I do also have on pre-order. But stay tuned for when I do check out or upload the video for Sakura as well. Let me know what you guys thought about Uchiha Sasuke 2.0 or 2022 version compared to even version 1.0 and compared to even 2022 Naruto as well. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts about it and any other kind of SH figures that you're thinking of picking up. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, everyone. See ya.